Your brain paid you before you even pressed play. Documented science, published and verified. The moment you decided to put on a show you've seen before, something you loved maybe from years ago, your brain released dopamine. Not during the show, not after the credits, before. Before anything even started, your nervous system was already rewarding you just for making the choice. I'm Mike, and what I want to walk you through today isn't just why TV feels good, it's why it feels the way it does specifically for you, the person born somewhere between 1965 and 1980. Because the relationship Gen X has with television and film is unlike any other generation's. It didn't start in high school.
It didn't start with streaming. It started when you were about 6 years old, on a Saturday morning, before anyone else in the house was awake. You woke up before your parents, not because anyone made you, because of cartoons. The house was still dark, and you were already there, bowl of cereal in hand, parked in front of the TV like you had a job to do. Reddit once asked the Gen X community what the most Gen X thing was. 5,000 people responded. Right near the top, next to recording songs off the radio onto a cassette, was that exact image, the Saturday morning cartoon ritual. 5,000 people, one memory, like your whole generation lived in the same house.
Psychologists call it the endowment effect. Things feel more valuable when they're genuinely hard to get. And Saturday morning cartoons were hard to get. They aired once a week. No rewind, no streaming, no clip available at 2 a.m. If you missed an episode, it was just gone. Maybe you'd catch a rerun in 6 months, maybe not. That scarcity made each episode feel like something worth showing up for. Your brain filed it accordingly. On top of that, there's what researchers call communal reinforcement. When other people share an experience with you, your brain stores it bigger, more real, more permanent. Monday morning at school, you didn't talk about the weather. You talked about whether Skeletor had a point this time, whether G.I. Joe was ever actually going to win. The show was social currency. And the fact that everyone watched the same thing at the same time, with no algorithm and no personalized feed, created a shared reference point that bonded an entire generation. After school, the house was quiet. Parents still at work, siblings somewhere else, and you turned on the TV. The afternoon lineup, Brady Bunch reruns, Little House, Happy Days, The Flintstones, wasn't glamorous, but it had one thing in common across every single show: predictability. You knew roughly what was going to happen. The family would have a problem, someone would make a mistake. By the end, it would be okay. Every time. A 2025 psychology publication put it plainly: the brain craves predictability. It lowers the internal alarm system. It reduces how hard the brain has to work to figure out whether things are safe.
For a kid growing up in a world where a lot of adult things were happening that nobody was properly explaining, this mattered more than it should have had to. The TV was a reliable presence in a way that not everything else was. It always made sense. It never left without giving you a proper ending first. Here's what's specific to your generation and doesn't apply to the ones before or after. Baby boomers grew up with 3 channels and parents who mostly controlled the set. Millennials grew up with the internet already competing for attention. Gen X sat right in the middle, old enough to have TV be the main event, young enough to have it feel like yours. Your parents weren't crowded around it. Your kids would eventually have a phone in their pocket by 12. But you had the TV in the living room, and nobody else was using it between 3 and 5 in the afternoon. That window was yours, and your brain knew it. Middle school brought He-Man, G.I. Joe, Transformers, DuckTales, Knight Rider, MacGyver. Each show had a hero with a code, a team with different strengths, and a clear answer to what the right thing to do looked like. He-Man ended every episode by walking up to the camera and giving you a life lesson directly. G.I. Joe closed with a public service announcement. They weren't subtle. They treated you like someone worth talking to, and you were paying attention.
every word.
Then came Cheers. 11 seasons, 1982 to 1993. For Gen X, Cheers was the first show where the bar full of flawed adults felt more honest than the families on every other channel. Nobody was trying to teach you a lesson. They were just people stuck with each other, figuring it out. That was new, and your generation responded to it in the ratings every week for over a decade. August 1st, 1981, MTV launched. For the first time in history, you could watch music. The way your brain responds to music paired with visuals is fundamentally different from either one alone. The combination hits the reward system harder and plants the memory deeper. That's why you can hear 8 notes of a song from 1986 and know exactly where you were when you first heard it.
You recorded music videos off MTV onto VHS tapes. Hit record, wait, rewind, watch again. You were creating saved content before anyone had a word for it. High school brought Saved by the Bell, Beverly Hills 90210, Fresh Prince, Seinfeld, Roseanne, The Simpsons. When The Simpsons debuted in 1989, it did something genuinely new. It made the messy American family funny, not inspirational, not something to aspire to, just real and flawed, and somehow still together. Homer wasn't a role model, and the show was honest about that. Gen X had spent their whole childhood watching TV families that solved problems in 22 minutes with a hug. The Bradys, the Keatons, the Seavers. Then the Simpsons walked in and said, what if the dad was kind of an idiot? Gen X didn't just laugh, they exhaled.
Because that was closer to what a lot of households actually looked like. Psychologists call what happened during these years the reminiscence bump. Memories formed during your teenage years are stored with more emotional weight than memories from any other period of your life. Your brain during those years was changing fast, building identity, experiencing things for the first time, and it filed those experiences with a different kind of urgency. The shows you watched between ages 10 and 20 are not just memories, they are emotional landmarks. When you hear the 90210 theme, you're not just remembering a show. You're feeling 1992. You're smelling the decade. You now have access to more television than any human being who has ever lived. Every show, every movie, every season, all at once, anytime. And what are you watching? Yellowstone, Succession, Ozark, Better Call Saul, true crime documentaries at 11 p.m., and probably at least one show you've already seen playing in the background while you do something else. A 2025 industry report confirmed it. Old content dominates streaming hours. Grey's Anatomy, which first aired in 2005, accumulated 3.5 billion viewing hours on streaming between 2021 and 2025. Stranger Things hit 1.7 billion. The older shows win by a lot, and Gen X plays a significant role in that. The shows Gen X gravitates toward as adults, Yellowstone, Succession, Ozark, The Sopranos, all share the same thing. They're about power, loyalty, and the cost of the choices you make. Nobody in them is purely good or purely bad. The same way life at 50 looks nothing like life at 15. Gen X watched shows in childhood that told them what the rules were. Now they watch shows that ask what happens when people break them. That's not a coincidence. That's a generation that paid attention long enough to get interested in the harder questions. Something interesting has happened recently. Someone posted on r/Gen X about rewatching Ferris Bueller's Day Off with their kids. The kids found it hilarious. The Gen X parent sat there feeling something different, uncomfortable. The guy who was the coolest person in the world at 14 looked, through adult eyes, kind of selfish, kind of manipulative. Someone who gets everything and never really pays for it. That post got thousands of responses because it wasn't just one parent. It was a generation recognizing together that the thing they loved when they were young means something different now. The nostalgia is still there, but it's sharper. It's got questions attached to it, which is actually the sign of a generation that has been paying attention all along. People assume that loving TV the way Gen X loves it is a kind of weakness, that you're running from something, that you can't handle reality and need a screen to cope.
The guy who was the coolest person in the world at 14 looked through adult eyes, kind of selfish, kind of manipulative. Someone who gets everything and never really pays for it. That post got thousands of responses because it wasn't just one parent. It was a generation recognizing together that the thing they loved when they were young means something different now. The nostalgia is still there, but it's sharper. It's got questions attached to it, which is actually the sign of a generation that has been paying attention all along. People assume that loving TV the way Gen X loves it is a kind of weakness, that you're running from something, that you can't handle reality and need a screen to cope. But the research says something different. Psychologists who study why people rewatch familiar content found that the primary thing those viewers are after isn't escape, it's control. In a world that is genuinely unpredictable, where jobs shift, relationships change, news is always alarming, and your phone has 17 notifications before you've had coffee, the ability to choose something where you already know how it ends is not a small thing. It's a decision to put your nervous system somewhere safe for a while. What you built, starting at age 6 without knowing you were building anything, was a relationship with storytelling. One that began before you had words for it, was shaped by the specific way your generation experienced scarcity and ritual and community. And it's still running, steady, automatic, every time you sit down and press play. So the next time someone gives you a look for rewatching The Sopranos for the third time, or staying up too late finishing one more episode of something you already know the ending to, go ahead. Your nervous system earned it. Drop a comment below. What's the show from your childhood that can still stop you cold the moment you hear the theme? I'd genuinely like to know. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.